Hey there, all you wicked cool people. Welcome back to another episode of the WCK podcast. My name is Kristin, and this is a special edition of our Interview with the DM series. Today, I have both Jason and Lee with me, and we're going to discuss world building. If you've listened to their respective interviews, we talked a lot about their feelings on homebrewed worlds versus pre-existing ones from modules. And as a fairly creative person myself, I'm still absolutely stunned at the vast networks they've interwoven and brought into life for their games. The idea of creating a little pocket community for a one-shot is palatable for me, but an entire world, it's a little too mind-blowing for me to actually try and figure out. So let's crack on and see how they go about bringing their imaginations to life and keeping it all well-balanced and honestly figuring out how to remember it all. Surely, I hope there are lots of notes and note-taking involved, maybe? I don't know. That's just how I would operate. But let's start. Good day, friends.
Hello.
Heyo.
Heyo. All right, so world building. How does it even start for you? Does it start as an idea for a one-shot or something small and then grow? Or does it all just hit you at once?
Do you want to go first, Lee?
Yeah, I can go
Go.
first. I think just an idea, maybe if we're playing a one-shot at some point, and then something will just click while we're playing that, and I'll go, actually, I can expand on this and make this into something much bigger, and then just roll with that, rather than just go straight dive into a campaign and go from there. I think it's easier when you have like a sort of a small base, an idea to work up to. Yeah, the opposite.
Yeah, I'm totally the opposite. It's like I have this whole story in my brain. I know how like the end goal of it, and I know how I want them to start. The middle's a blur up until I'm doing it, but I know where I want it to end, and I know where I want it to start. And then I work the other way around. I go, oh, this world's so big, I could do these smaller games and make them one shot, and it kind of influences the world a bit. So just like complete opposite to how you work, which is super interesting. Because I feel like we get similar. Our worlds are quite similarly filled and quite interesting and just enjoyable to play in. That it's weird that we come from completely different directions with that. That's pretty interesting.
I think
I had
that
a
we
feeling
suffer
that
from
you
that.
might too.
Yeah, I think we suffer from that thing where we like to have a lot of things make sense. So once we've got an idea or where we know we're going and starting, we just jump into it and just work to try and connect everything up and line it all up.
Yeah, you occasionally tell me to go and eat food because I'm doing stuff.
Friendly reminder, please eat and nourish yourself. Take care of yourself while you're building worlds, because you can get lost and hopefully you don't die within
Yeah, if you're listening to
the
this
creation
while working,
process.
just check last time you ate or drank some water before continuing this podcast. You can put us on pause.
Maybe get up, stretch, go to the bathroom. You can take us with you. It's fine. We're not going to listen to you while you go to the bathroom. Take us with you. But you definitely need to get up and go get something to eat. And
Don't
some
forget
water.
that tea on the side. It's gone cold.
Heat up your coffee again. Okay, so it's interesting, and I think part of that, when you said the middle's kind of a blur, is something that I want to touch on, but maybe in a second, because I think that I would imagine your community of players has a lot to do with shaping what happens in the middle. But obviously you need a jumping off point, right? And some sort of trajectory to aim towards, some sort of goal to accomplish for your world. Now, when you're thinking about your world, what kinds of things do you consider? So, for example, lore has to affect the actual world, right? Jason, you have games where races like gnomes have been enslaved, and there's a plague of sorts that affects the land. Where, or should I say when, does that all come into play in the creation process? Is that something that like initiates everything? You're thinking about, oh, what happens when this entire race is enslaved, and then you create from there? Or is that just something interesting that you throw in
It's
to create a dynamic?
yeah, the kind of the gnomish rebellion was kind of my goal in that, but I was like, what are they rebelling against? And I go, well, they've been
Hmm.
enslaved for generations, and there's a whole stigma about gnomes because why were they enslaved in the first place, or why they looked down upon? And then that led me into, or maybe they did something in a great war in the past that upset the other races,
Hmm.
which that led into them helping like this dark wizard or witch, and them being kind of
Okay.
like part of this whole bigger thing, and it's just interesting. I like to give the players something to work from as well, going in with the lore. I don't like to bombard them with like here's like 6 pages of why the gnomes are this way. It's good. The gnomes are looked down upon. You know that they've been enslaved for generations. They're starting to build up that kind of resistance, and they're escaping into neighboring countries. And it allowed Lee, for example, to make a gnomish character that his backstory is based on that lore. And I just like
Hmm.
to do that. I like to provide enough lore for somebody to flesh out the skeleton that I've built. So
Sure.
just
So,
little interesting pockets of information that I can put out there.
but when you were creating your world, where, like, was that cart, was that horse, was that chicken, was that egg? Where did that come in the creation process? Was that fairly early on, or had you already really kind of started to flesh out your world and then you inserted these things to change the dynamic of the landscape?
Well, for the particular pick on the gnomes to be that race is that I'd up to Lee playing a gnome, I had never had a player as a gnome.
Hmm.
So it was like no one's playing this race. Maybe I'm just gonna make this race a reason why nobody wants to play them. They're gonna
Sure.
be they're gonna draw the short straw, or be like the race that nobody has played for me so far. So I was like, I'm either gonna make them interesting enough for somebody to play, or there's a valid reason why people would choose not to
People
play them.
aren't.
Yeah. So I was just trying to make it make sense in my head. It goes, is this race just not good, or is there something
Yep.
about them that isn't great? How can I make them more interesting within my world? So I
That's
wanted to give them that foothold.
That's interesting because I feel like that kind of is a little what I just kind of mentioned wanting to tackle a little later on, where you let player dynamics and decisions give shape, some huge shape to what happens in your world. What about you, Lee? Where does stuff like that come into play?
Just like cool concepts or what I think could be interesting for players to interact with. So the Primal Order, who are mainly non-magic users, and they live off strength is power and all this and survival of the fittest. They came from a one-shot we'd done where um, something had come alive and then it changed everyone's, so moved all their abilities about, and you ended
Hmm.
up swapping characters with somebody else. And I
Hmm.
thought, well, that's quite interesting, but what would so it puts them in a position where they have something that they don't normally have. If I place this weird grouping that are against magic users, will it impact the player's choice on will they take a magic user class or will they not? I tried to push them to take a magic user class to sort of
Punish
uh,
us?
not punish, but
Mm,
to make it feel like more that they would be like there's a threat to them in the world.
sure,
Um,
yeah.
so they started in a magic school, and the requirement was they just needed a reason to be there. Non-magic classes, like if you couldn't have magic or didn't know magic, it was fine of you to turn up and be like a fighter who just didn't have any magic,
Hmm.
because you got a free feat that gave you some access to like limited magic.
Yeah.
Um, I just thought that was really cool and something that I thought, yeah, let's see how they react to this with this group that's in the world. So
Hmm.
yeah, that just grew from that one shot where I'd seen how you as players reacted to having somebody else's character and all
Yeah,
these
that's
different
cool.
things, and yeah, so I thought, yeah, let's throw that in and see how they get on.
So I'm trying to put that into a timeline for my brain, and feel like I feel like maybe with both of you, because Jason, when I started that campaign with you, that had Thivara in it and Auric, that was kind of our first of this 3 chapter series that's happening, but your world was kind of already established through other things that you had done previously. Lee, similarly, we had a one shot where we were testing characters before we came into a world, but you had a group that was kind of in the world, but in a different place in the world that had already kind of started your world building, right? Like you already had something and then you were just fully kind of fleshing it out as we continued on. Um, so then it sounds like for both of you, you kind of sort of start with an idea and then it really does kind of grow and change and start to take shape when you have players come into the world and then the things that they do affect how it grows. And I mean, not even necessarily from here on out, but you can say, okay, well, now I've got a Yuan T character that happened with us, Jason. I've got a Yuan T character. We're going to take this section of the map and we are going to make it Yuan T territory and, come up with some sort of system for community and any hierarchy and whatnot that was involved there. And you really kind of put forward those principles and applications to world building in that respect, but it doesn't come about until you have a player that kind of initiates that. Okay, so once you have your ideas, putting everything online has to be a quite big undertaking, right? Talking about like just a world map, how much of that do you actually flesh out before your start date, right? Do you have the entirety of the world and what it looks like, or do you just have this community and this parcel of land, and then it just keeps growing and adding? Like I said to you, Jason, with the Yuan T, that territory technically already existed. It was just then claimed by Yuan Ts because there was a reason for it. How much of your overall world is set in stone before you go? I mean, and obviously you don't know until you know, but like, is it 90% and then just a little bit changes here and there, or?
Well, when I create a campaign, there's obviously a globe or a flat Earth, whatever kind of situation you want to base your world in, um,
Hmm.
in this fantasy setting. So you know that it's going to be some global thing, but I usually start with one place. So you guys started in Hurktberry in the first campaign, and
Hmm.
I didn't know any. I knew that there was an empire. I didn't know what the capital was yet. I didn't know where it was located and how close it was going to be to the north or Nordheim. I didn't know we were going to be neighbouring the elves until one of our other players wanted to play elf who had some
Hmm.
disease, things like that, and needed a reason to get him over to the north. So then it was located across the Gulf because he took a
Yep.
boat in his backstory. So that's determined the location of that. But it's very much a work on a fog of war approach to my games where I have a loose thing, but I don't know exactly what's there until maybe 2 sessions prior if I've not already got it planned out.
Sure.
Because I'd like to keep them sandboxy to really kind of make the games unique for my players
Hmm.
in a way. So I just make them up as and when I get to them. So the information's not just fresh in my mind, I can make it unique as well. And I'm not just leaving it to get stagnant somewhere because I can always, if I go, oh, this place does this thing and it's really cool, and then you guys
Hmm.
never go there, I'm like, oh, it's a waste. I've written all this lore about this place that has never been seen. If I don't
Yep.
write it
Yep.
down, I can go, oh, do you want to go to a different village? Well, I can just pull this cool idea that I had, and it's now this village instead. I can drop it in anywhere because the name just can change, the location can change, but the idea can stay the same.
Hmm. Fair enough.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much on the same as you. Um, you just sort of have like a bare bones idea of what you want, and then you just let the players shape the world. Um, it's like if you have players with like once you get all the backstories and stuff, you can start putting other pieces together. But I like to be a little bit prepared and have at least 3 or 4 locations where I know they're more or less going to go, um,
Hmm.
like ready. And then once we started and from each session to session, just continue to build on using the information that the players have provided, whether it's their backstory or actions that they've taken during one of the sessions or something,
Mhm.
and then just use that to develop on it. So really, the players just shape the world, and then I just work off that.
Yeah, I think that's the best way though for the
Yeah.
sandbox homebrew game. That's it's to have everything played out, planned out, and everything in a particular place and things happen at a particular time. You're just setting yourself up for disappointment, I think, because your players are always going to go and do something different, or they're just not going to go to that location and any number of kind of things. If you have players that you're playing with a long time, like I do with you guys, you can guide a little bit or drop hints, especially when you know in the background, like I've lost all my shit. So you kind of like, okay, we go along
Oops.
for the couple of sessions until Jason's back on his feet with all the wild information and locations and maps back out again.
Yep.
But having stuff in certain locations and keeping it there and not working in that sandbox fog of war mentality can just set you up for that disappointment. And I don't, not only for the DM but for the players, and I don't ever want to make a session boring because I hadn't had something planned there. I like to always have something in my back pocket that is not stuck to one location.
It's really good to hear both of you say that, though, because I think that a lot of times, I know, especially for me in my brain, right? I am an overthinker, over preparer, over everything. And to hear that you only have a couple of things set in stone and then you let the experience shape what's happening in the world is really kind of a good calm down breath, right? Like you don't have to have an entire world because I mean, in our fantasy land, right? It's not just this one plane of existence you even have to consider too, right? In our campaign, we have people that are from the Feywild. Well, shit. Now I got to think about what the Feywild might need to look like too. It's not just this world, and now it's alternate like dimensions and planes that I've got to think of. Oh, I've got this character that wants to be an astral elf. I didn't even think about that part of the world, and now I kind of have to put a little bit of thought into it. But that is something that you can kind of shape as you go along. Now, as far as putting things together, right? I don't know. I know that I've spoken to both of you individually about how crazy I go with naming, specifically with my characters, with my children, everything. Like we just talked about it. I put a lot of thought into it. So naming cities, towns, shop names, NPC names, there's a lot to consider. So how do you go about naming things in your world? Are there specific conventions you like to stick with, or do you just, everything's Dave?
Everything is always Dave.
Everything is
every
Dave!
NPC is Dave until they're not Dave.
Until they're not.
But I don't know. Do you want to take this one firstly? Of how you do it?
So I struggle naming NPCs, so I don't really have anything. I try to use the fancy name generators, but sometimes I'm mainly not happy with what the fuck they produce. So I'll just sit here, think, look at things, and go, "Oh, that says taco, cat, goat, cheese. If I arrange these letters this way, a cheese."
Lord Voldemort got his name that way.
Yeah, so if it works for him, if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me.
Yeah, I think I named a goblin Fleb for you guys one time just because I
did.
didn't know what to say. It was just like a noise. I was just like, Fleb.
Yeah, that's literally the only way I can do that. Naming places and stuff is a little bit different. I tend to lean more towards using the Latin dictionary that I've got, or using Latin words. So I think a lot of them just fit certain places and stuff. Or I default to Welsh because I know most of my players don't know what the hell Welsh is.
It all looks made up anyway.
Yeah, I can get away with it. It looks like a fancy language. So
you're missing a
It's
couple
probably
of
why I
vowels
never
in there,
say
buddy.
any of the city names in your campaign.
Yeah.
It's just like I for naming cities, for me, the different kind of districts, the empires or the like the shogunate that running the different like countries, like the empire is very much Romanesque, So I went for the Latin, similar to Leah, took influence from Latin and named cities after that. So Nova Lux is just new light, and it's pretty transparent to what the city is built on.
Sure.
For Nordheim, that is very much Viking-esque influence. So I've taken a lot of Swedish words and combined them together, and Swedish towns, because I'm in Sweden. I can look on the map and pick a name. And it's new to you guys, but if a Swedish person played, they'd be like, yeah, I live down the road 10 minutes from that place. Stuff like there's a whole continent on the other side of the map that you guys don't know about in the campaign, which is very much Asian-esque style. So it's very East Asian, with like the shogunate and the emperor and the Great Wall and all that kind of traditional East Asian stereotypical vibe stuff, which is pretty awesome. But they're close to the border of Shirofra, where the UNT are from, and they're very much Mayan, Egyptian kind of people. So I influence off just ancient civilizations in our own real world history.
Yeah.
And then because I like to be transparent, I like you guys to know exactly what this civilization or these people are like. I use names that are very much, if I say Nordheim, you're not thinking, oh, is that somewhere in India? You go, it's a
Probably not.
Like you instantly know it's going to be something Viking-esque, Nordic, Scandinavian vibe. The Empire is always going to be very much either the British Empire, so you got that like steampunky vibe stuff with the airships and stuff, but also that Roman influence of having an emperor and these large legions of armies and they're mostly human and stuff like that. So I like it to be pretty transparent, so my players think less about that information and worry more about the game that they're playing.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. It's good for players like me too, instead of just having some sort of random name. Because I am who I am, and like I really do like breaking down names. I'm constantly looking up. I mean, my kids also, probably my fault, but they'll be hearing an interesting name and constantly ask, like, what does that mean? What does that name mean? And I do it with cities too. And so, in our favorite pastimes, sometimes we just hang out and look at maps and talk about borders of different towns and communities and whatnot, and why something was named this. Oh, it's named this because it's a mill town. It's named this because it's, wherever it is, it's in the mountains. And having names that kind of reflect, and we've talked about this before, Jason, I think maybe in your interview, having names that reflect what the environment is around you. If my character is hearing tales of something Nordheim, right? Oh, well, we're probably going to have to go to the north. North means cold. North might mean mountains. Like, it helps give me a picture of what is unknown already just because of the name. You know what
exactly.
I mean?
It's less mental pressure, I think, for the players when you do it that way, because they instantly have a picture in the mind. You don't have to overthink about what this place looks like or what's possibly going to be there. It's very much, it makes the job so much easier for the players, and they can just accept it on face value rather than having to think about it, which I think helps the game just continue.
Yeah. I mean, and players, cool. If everybody does that, great. I know that I'm just that particular player, right? I'm obnoxious. I'm constantly asking for names. And after putting all that effort into naming systems you've implemented into your worlds, right? You don't want to go to Shirathra, which is the Yuan-Ti place, and then have me go, oh, okay, I run into this person on the corner and I'm asking for a potion shop. Hey, buddy, what's your name? My name's Brian. You know, that tried and true Yuan-Ti name, Brian.
That
where can I find
Mayan
this
name?
Yeah, where can I find
Egyptian
this
name.
potion shop? What potion shop are you looking for? Oh, Dave's Potion Emporium over here. That's,
But even
three.
to that point though, like instead of being like a sea, like for Nordheim, I have seers in the Goliath tribe that we recently encountered, and it's very much that traditional Viking-esque. There's a seer, there's a herbalist, and there's a healer. There's not like, oh, there's a doctor, there's a fortune teller, there's a abjure, a wizard. the even
Mhm.
naming, I wouldn't call it a potion shop in Sharafa. I'd probably say an alchemy shop.
Yeah.
Just the same thing, but just that slight twist on the words that
Yeah.
colloquially will mean vaguely the same thing can really set the scene as well.
That's fair, and it really helps keep or create and then keep the immersion, right? Because if I walked into Yuan Ti territory and you told me that a character, a Yuan Ti, not just some random human walking around, but a Yuan Ti's name was Brian and he's sending me over to Dave's Potion Emporium, I'd be like, Jason, you're having an off day, buddy.
Yeah.
Like, you should probably get up and go to the bathroom, get your coffee and a snack, and then we'll come back and you can think about what you just told me, sir.
Because then I might make a UNC called Brian,
course.
who has a
Of course
husband
you are going
called
to.
Dave, who runs
Yeah,
a
but I mean,
potion shop.
as a player character, I think you can get away with shit like that because
Yeah.
you're supposed to be different.
Right.
But even for the names for the like the Goliath tribes people that you got are all very Scandinavian-esque names, to just fit that vibe as well. If I called one of them John, it just wouldn't feel the same than
Right.
like Bjorn or
Bjorn,
Floki
Johan.
or
Yeah.
you already know a lot about the person just from the name and the location. You don't. It's so little mental work for you guys when I do it that way.
So if it were me, I think, and I did mention this in the interview that you did with me, Jason, is that I would feel like I would need to have a pre-generated by me, probably list of, oh shit, they asked me a question and I don't know the answer to it. His name is Gutenberg. That's his name, Gutenberg, right? Because I'm not just forced to go, Brian, Dave, it's Dave. It's always Dave, right? Like I have some sort of list, and just maybe a reminder to yourself, if they ask for a potion shop, it's not going to be a potion shop. It's going to be an alchemist. It's going to be a chemist. It's going to be whatever place we're in to keep the vibe the way I've set it up. But we've discussed that I'm a note taker. Is stuff like that helpful to you? Do you guys have like random lists of? No, you're shaking your head. No,
not really.
I do.
Just-
I have some lists of names that I can just like pull from. But also if I'm on the spot, I'm pretty okay coming up with names as well.
Yeah.
Especially
that might be an experience thing for you too, though.
I think so.
You've been doing it a bit.
Yeah, I had names for like 2 people in the alchemy shop. I had Selena and I had the owner Gizmondo.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of the other name. I didn't think you guys were going to go downstairs in that session. You guys went downstairs. I was like, I have there's 7 people down here that are nameless, and you're going to interview every single one of them. So
of course we are. And you're going to want, and our resident note taker is going to want you to spell the name so she can write it down to accurately reflect what happened. Yes.
Yeah, so I was like,
I
making
am who
names.
I am. I'm sorry.
That's why like the Dragonborn and the human apprentice were just called like what do you like Binko and Bonko or something like that, just because it's just like
flip flip.
Yeah, it's like vaguely I kind of know the names. The Victorian-esque imperial stuff. Lucy is you can get away with that name. Like Jade, like there's certain names that you can get away with in multiple settings. So I just lean towards them. Dave being my favorite.
Default.
Dave.
Yeah, but I think like just writing that into the lore as well. It's just like by default, all the guards referred to as Dave because they have to protect their identity from like people that might take grievances for them being guards on the street.
Absolute genius, that.
Yeah,
The god of thunder, Dave. God of the underworld, Dave. Like I can't tell you their real names. It's just always Dave.
Yeah, they're like the Fae. They just don't give the real name ever.
Yeah,
your
then you're
names
into
of power.
Yep.
I tried lists, and so I'll write stuff down on sticky notes, have them dotted around my computer, and then when I'm in the game, I completely forget that they're there.
But, well, I mean,
You just like narrow focus, just blind as
Yeah, just completely zoned in and focused onto what I'm doing. I just don't even look around, which is why I have a sticky note that says finish for 10 o'clock, and I stick it right on the screen, and I will always forget. So
I'm sorry.
Jason tries to remind me, and Kristin tries to remind me at times.
Sorry, I gotta go to work now,
No,
guys.
it's fine. That's but yeah, I just can't do with the notes and stuff.
I wonder if
Uh,
it would be different for you if it were in person and you had like a DM screen there, or maybe that's still also information overload, or maybe even you would bring your computer and put it behind your DM screen, and so you'd just not pay attention anyway. But let's talk about hosting games and the various platforms that are available versus the ones that we prefer. But getting your world online, out of your head into the interwebs, right? One of you prefers to put your worlds onto Roll20 and one of you prefers Foundry. Is this a preference in online platform, or does bringing your world to life in the way that you envision it specifically drive you to use one platform over the other?
my answer is well simple. It's because I've spent too much money on Roll20 at the moment
Hmm.
to move over to Foundry. I
That's
own
Yep.
as well.
Foundry. Yeah,
Yeah.
own Foundry, so I can run stuff on it. Well, I haven't yet to run anything because I'm
Because
terrified
all your
about it.
paid stuff
It's
is.
Yeah, well, it's terrifying to use. It's moving from something I'm really comfortable with running and know everything, all the ins and outs, to something that I've got a vague understanding of.
Yeah.
Change is
I mean,
scary.
Yeah,
from player perspective for you, I'm sure you know Foundry like in and out from the player side of it. So
yeah,
there's not
Mhm.
much of a stretch to go over to Foundry, but I definitely understand that you've learned on this particular software, so you're comfortable with it, and it's always better to use something that you're comfortable with because you know if
yeah,
anything goes wrong, you can fix it. And I use Foundry. I used Roll20 before I used Foundry, but I found Foundry at the time when I was looking for a VTT had more options for me to do the walls and stuff without paying the extra cost for the subscription for the year, which is the only reason I got
Mhm.
Foundry to begin with. Was that I can do all this stuff for one time payment that Roll20 is
yeah.
charging me £8 a month for,
Mhm.
and Foundry was on sale for like £50 at the time. So I was like,
Yeah.
that's less than a year of Roll20 subscription. I'm just gonna bite the bullet, get it,
Yeah.
and not look back. I found Roll20 has the lower pixel per
Oh yeah,
inch ratio as well.
Hmm.
So their default is 70 pixels per inch, where Foundry's is 100. And just coming from the artistic side of me drawing my maps and bringing my ideas into reality in a digital presence, Foundry just allows me to have more control of the quality of those maps for you guys.
It's fair. So it sounds like it probably is just like Lee, right? This is
started
what I
on
learned
Roll20.
on. This
Yeah,
is what
started on
I
it.
know, and this
Sunk
is what I
so
got
much
started with.
money into it. Yeah,
Right.
it's just
Honestly,
that's
like,
literally the one thing that if I could have had all my stuff downloaded uh, from Roll20 and moved it just straight over to Foundry, I'd
yeah.
probably change over because there is so much stuff you can do on Foundry that you can't on Roll20.
Hmm.
I think it's more open for you to customize it to your how your players play, and
Yep.
love all the additional features you can do, like setting up little special animations and things like that.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Like they have,
hotbar
And
is great
yeah,
as well.
they have it
Roll20
on
is
Roll20, but
trying.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not there
It's,
though. It's not.
yeah.
I think that's the lower
The
pixel rate though. Again, like you can see, kind of they've had to compress the effects in Roll20 a little bit more.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
the just the different elevations and layers on Foundry, I think is fucking amazing.
The
Where you
Yeah.
can just
modern
have
community for sure are just mind blowing. They come out with some amazing mods that
yeah,
you can just add to it, like the mass HP. Take it if you're doing like a fireball, you can just collect a bunch of units and drop them all by one, or like teleport effects and
yeah, it's
turn
so good.
trackers that like does like an audible ping at you when it's your turn or just
Hmm.
before your turn.
Boom.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's your
there's
turn.
there is stuff on Roll20 that you can add some of that, not all of it.
yeah,
But you need to be the top tier
Mm.
subscription, which is
yeah.
about £9 a month,
This
so you can access mods, which is a bit strange because why wouldn't you just open that to everybody?
Exactly,
Um,
especially
Sure.
when you got a competitor like Foundry that is giving it as a one-time payment.
yeah,
It's I feel
the
like
only saving grace I will say for um, Roll20 is they do offer stuff every month for free for people who are paying.
that's
So
good.
Mm.
this one just gone.
Then
I
it's
mean,
not
it
really
was
free, is it?
Well, yeah. So this month
Pay
I
via
paid
your
$9,
subscription. Yeah.
not nine
Right.
dollars, £9, but
Mhm.
and I got, I think it was like 300 pre-generated maps for
Mm.
um already made modules. So I think it was Out of the Abyss, um, Curse of Strahd, and Rhymer the Frost
Convenient.
Maiden. Yeah, I had a look at them. I don't like them
Yeah, so you get the
though.
free content, but it's hit and miss whether you actually like them or not.
Yeah,
Yep.
they've had a few that have been absolutely fucking stellar. So I got a couple of
I had that
source books.
JB Media on Roll20
I
Marketplace
was
is
just gonna
pretty
say, if
solid.
you're unhappy
Yeah,
with your
he puts
maps,
out some good
JB
stuff.
Media.
Yeah, puts
Hmm
out some good stuff. I've seen them on there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
good price as well. So get buying.
hmm
Yeah.
Um, so let's say that you know, sometimes tragedy strikes. I almost hate to bring it up. You kind of did earlier though, but I feel like talking about it might be good for other people to hear. Plus, I feel like there's no shortage of emotional damage that you have personally inflicted upon me. I would love to be able to return the favor.
Getting your name
So I
back.
can only feel so bad. Jason, recently your whole Foundry server just crashed and you lost almost
Yeah, to be fair though, it's
all
not
of your stuff.
Foundry's fault. It's me using an
No, it's
old
not.
hard drive. It's totally
Yep.
user error, and every time Foundry has let me down, has always been user error. It's because I
Yep.
like to do shit on my own, without any prior knowledge of how to do shit. So I was like,
Who needs this instruction manual? Now, listen, it wasn't an attack on Foundry. It was really just speaking specifically to the tragedy. And I'm not even using that word lightly. Like, I know personally, since I've been involved in this world with you, the amount of hours of work that you have put into this. And like you said before, people literally reminding you to stop and eat and go to the bathroom and drink and take care of yourself because you are so busy creating and putting stuff onto this server of yours, right? And to have it all just kind of I can imagine personally wanting to wash my hands of the entirety of it. Like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm done with D&D
I was so
completely.
close.
I don't even want to be involved in D&D anymore. And what you did though is you took a couple days to hole up, you know, recover, and then you got back on it and have had to recreate the world that you already created. And some of that is, you know, you had some notes available to you, which was great, but we have
Yeah.
some stuff posted, you know, in our little Discord server for that campaign where we had previous maps and world information stored there. So if it was lost from your computer, your server, we still had some of it. But I just want to talk about what it has been like having to recreate your world that your players were already involved in and what it was like. Like, did you had you not been involved in this game with your friends, would you have chucked up deuces and been like, I'm just gonna I'll create a new world because I can't even deal with the heartache of trying to figure out
Yeah, I think
that again.
80% of me just getting straight back into it was letting you guys down. Was like my biggest fear. I was like, these guys have invested almost 3 years of their lives into this campaign as well as I. I could have just let it go and just got no. I just can't. I've lost every bit of information I had for this spell, but it's not even lost. It's just can't access the hard drive anymore. The hard drive is what's broken.
Well, did you try asking it, please?
I tried asking it please on multiple different computers and it is not working. Maybe someday I'll try and break into
Maybe
it
a different language.
And yeah, luckily I didn't have any like personal photos, and that is literally just a spare old drive that I had, which I thought, because I was self-hosting Foundry at the time, that I was only getting used for that D&D stuff, so I was lucky that it was only that and no actual real life stuff on there. But it was really upsetting. But yeah, the 80% that got me through of just getting back into it was just providing that content for you guys and keeping that world still going. And Joe helped me a lot setting up the AWS server, which is now running off. So it's if it crashes again now, it's Amazon's fault. So so we can all blame Amazon.
Jeffrey Bezos.
Yeah, we can all go down and bounce on Jeff Bezos. But yeah, shout out to our editor Joe, who's not here today.
Yeah.
He really helped me just do like the code to make sure the server's running and getting all the info, and just show me the bare bones of how to get this AWS server started. He's been a real help for me. I can't thank him enough to do it. He's the rest of the 20% of you guys continuing this campaign as fast as it has been.
We should give him a thank you ASMR sip of whatever. Thank you. Here, ready? This is for Joe. Thanks.
I haven't got a drink.
Public, so everybody can realize that I'm thankful. Yeah, it was heartbreaking for me, not for me, for you, right? Like me feeling so terrible when I realized, because it took me a second to catch up, right? Like, oh, what do you mean it's gone? You just can't access it. Like you gotta go through the back door now. Like you lost your key to the front door. You gotta go break in through the window. And then when I realized, no, it's like gone. I was like, oh, and I just sat there and ranted to Chet. And I'm like, I know how much work he's put into it and how little of a percentage I've been involved in, like it's so much. So,
Yeah.
I am very appreciative that you brought it back to life for us, but I think we all would have understood if you were like, I just cannot, because that's a blow, a big blow. 3 years
Soul
worth
crushing.
of work.
But you bounced back like a champion.
You did. I think, did we take a week off?
I think it's a week, yeah.
I think a week off.
I think if I left it any longer, it would have been me just going no. If it wasn't for Joe's help and getting back on it so fast and just forcing myself to do it and not let you guys down, if it had gone any longer than it had done, I would have just gone, nah, I just can't, guys. I just can't go back to it.
Yeah.
But the trying to look at silver linings of it, redoing the world from the ground up on a fresh server has made my organization for the server so much better, because it's not information coming over 3 years that is just like, I'm going to put it here and I'll sort it all out later, and obviously you never get round to sorting it out later. Has allowed me to then actually have some structure and organization within the cloud hosted server now, so everything's got its like nice little place and it's all neat and tidy, and since the beginning of our time playing together, I've started to make my own assets and maps. So I wasn't using a lot of the maps anyway, because I prefer to use my own, especially because I record in the background now and if post content online and stuff like that. So having it's forced me to be a little bit more proactive in my map making and asset making, and I just now make like monsters and vehicles and weapons and items and scattered terrain solely for the purpose of showing you guys it on a Monday night. And bonus, I get to also make little bundles and sell and give them to patrons and whatnot.
Yeah.
So the bundles have always kind of been where you guys are in the story and what is most relevant.
You kind of shaping my world external to your individual game as well, which I think.
Speaking of which, if anybody needs an airship for their journeys in their campaigns, JB Media's got you covered. Go check it out. There are a bunch of different colors for your sails you can choose from, and you can, like, you want weapons of war on there, go ahead and put this huge ballista on there. Just don't forget to, get some ammunition for it while you're at it. So if somebody came to you, right? You two are experienced game masters who people look to for help. What kind of advice would you give to somebody to be able to go forward and create a world? What is the first thing that you would suggest to somebody?
No idea is a shit idea. So if you have something that you've thought of and you're passionate about, just run with it. And see where it'll go. Put it to your players as like a start, like maybe a one shot or just something small. See
Mhm.
how they go, and then think, how can I expand on it? You can get inspiration from movies, TV shows, books. There's even other DMs. There's no
Mhm.
shortage of where you can draw inspiration from, and I don't feel like it's, oh, I've got something similar in mind to somebody else. I'm just literally copying it. There's only so much you can do, and you're gonna have people who have very similar things. And I was
Right.
saying to Kristin the other day, um, about some of mine and Jason's NPCs have been
Mhm.
named very similar, and I don't know if it's because we've either seen something at some point that's the same, or heard something, or we've had a conversation, and it's just that's where our mind's gone to.
I think really over the past couple years, you two have just kind of mind melded a little bit, and there's a space where you two share a certain amount of brain, and so it's probably that portion of your shared community brain that does that kind of thinking for you. But Jason, what do you think?
Um, don't build a whole world straight from the go. Just start
Mm,
with a small town and maybe one or two neighboring towns. You can give the overall world or the continent or the country a name, but don't feel like you have to start at this point where you have to have everything planned out. Create a small localized session for the first couple of sessions that maybe it's just a run from one village to the next one. Precisely how I started off the first campaign with Kristin and yourself, uh, Evelina, Seb. Uh, you guys were just on a run from your home village or where you're currently located to a neighboring village, which was a trading port between this main country and its neighboring country, the Empire.
mhm.
That's all I started with in that first session. On like world building wise, that's the minimum. Just get the game going. The rest of the information will come over time. So I'd just say don't stress over trying to create a whole world. If you want to expand on your world, you can ask in communities, like ask me questions about my world so I can give you an answer. And half the time,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can
yeah,
make
yeah.
up those
Yep.
answers on the spot to fulfill the answer to the question that people ask. Like who are the deities? How was the world created? Who's the main
Yep.
civilizations? Who's the biggest cult? Those kind of questions people can ask them and just have a vague description of them and fill those gaps in later down the line when they become more relevant.
Yeah. I think that's a great resource to pull from, and I had forgotten about it until you just mentioned it. I've seen in Facebook groups people post that, "Hey, ask me about my world, anything." And they're questions that you don't know to answer. You know what I'm saying? Like, "Oh, I never thought about what kind of deities the people and would the deities differ from this place to this place to this place? And is there any god that particularly did anything to affect and shape this world?" Because in fantasy worlds like ours, it generally does happen that some sort of god intervened somehow and something happened because of it. A place was created, an item was created, a something. And questions you don't know to answer until they're asked by a community of people whose brains operate differently than yours. Um, Interestingly enough, my phone just kind of pinged. I have this app that I've installed, and it's supposed to be inspirational. It likes to attack me personally sometimes, as you know, all of my friends like to do. But it said, when you're feeling overwhelmed, try going one step at a time. And I just feel like that's perfectly kind of summing up what you guys just said versus how I came into this prepared like, "Oh my god, I can't believe how big your brain spaces are that you can have all of this in here and then remember it." You're like, I don't have it all in there." And that's really
Fake it till you
refreshing
make it.
to hear. Right, fake it till you make it. It just I can't thank you both enough. This conversation has been incredibly enlightening. I'm constantly in awe of how you two are able to create what you do and hold all of the space that you do for it. There are so many moving parts, and both of you do an impeccable job of facilitating gameplay and exploration for your players. So on behalf of myself and the rest of your players, Thank you so much for all of your hard work creating and then maybe sometimes having to recreate what it is that you have given to us. Being able to create a world that feels real, really, really, really real, is a talent with both of you absolutely excel at. A fantasy world that feels like the real world is no easy task, and keeping things in mind, like giving your Yuan Ti towns names that feel like a Yuan Ti named them and not just Snake Town, makes it so much easier to immerse yourself during gameplay. There are so many things to think about when creating something as grand scale as an entire world, but taking it one step at a time and breaking it down into smaller chunks is the only way to make it manageable. You don't have to have everything set to perfection upon the start of your campaign, just like both of these fellas have just said to you. Your world is constantly changing, just like the real world is constantly changing. So your fantasy land just kind of mimics what happens in real world. Thank you both so much again for sitting down and talking with me today. Your work has inspired our community, and you've both been incredibly helpful to any and everyone looking to get into it. Keep creating and keep being cool, kids. All of you listening, you should stay cool too. But if you can't be cool, be wicked. Until next time. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you to Kev G. Moore for providing the music for this series. Check out his links for YouTube, Spotify and Patreon in the links below. Wherever you found us today, don't forget to like and subscribe for more great content, and if you want to find out more about what we do, how to support us, pick up some merch and find links to our friends like JB Media, visit us at wickedcoolkids.co.uk.
That's okay. We can do some ASMR for Joe as you.
Ding dong, ding dong. Okay.
Like that.
Stop. Stop.
Oh, Daddy Joe.
Oh my God. Okay, feel uncomfortable. We're gonna start now. Please stop. Please stop.